Today I'm going to show you some further refinements to your muffler setup for your air compressor, and also some further modifications to make your air compressor even quieter than I showed you before. A while back I did a video on how to make your air compressor quieter using an automotive muffler, and this is the muffler I used in the video. And if you haven't seen that video, what I did was I ran a 1-inch rubber air hose from the intake of the air compressor down into the inlet of this muffler on this side. And to seal it, I had some scrap foam rubber I just shoved in around the hoses. Very, very crude setup, very simple, and I was basically just experimenting to see if it would work, and I was real happy to see I got a pretty good sound reduction. Afterward, I downloaded a decibel meter app for my phone to see what kind of sound reduction I actually got. Now, I had to keep in mind that the microphone on a smartphone is made more for a human voice and not necessarily for checking the sound on an air compressor. So it's compromised somewhat, but I was able to get a comparison from the stock setup of the air compressor to the modified setup using this muffler. And what I found was I got approximately a 4 decibel drop in the sound level. I was honestly a little bit disappointed with a 4 decibel drop in sound, but I got to looking into it further, and what I found was a 3 decibel drop alone represents a 50% sound reduction. And so I was happy once I saw that it was a 50% sound reduction, or greater than a 50% sound reduction, and you could definitely hear it in person. The camera microphone doesn't pick up the air sound pulses nearly as well as what my ear can, unfortunately, so you really couldn't hear it too much on the video, but it was greater than a 50% sound decrease. So today what I wanted to do there's a couple things I wanted to do in this video. I wanted to kind of finish up this crude setup I had, because I wanted to get rid of the foam rubber and use actual fittings. And also I have another modification for the air compressor that will not only eliminate, well, this part here is used for eliminating the air pulses, but the other modification I want to do is eliminating or reducing the sound that's coming out of the cast iron housing itself. In other words, your valve clicking sounds and any internal components that are touching, like the rings and the pistons, any of that sound, that higher pitched sound that's coming through the casting, is going out into the room too, and it makes up a lot of the sound. So what I wanted to do is try something else to reduce that sound. So that's something to look forward to here a little bit after I show you this. So I basically got the parts from a hardware store. This is all stuff you can find in the hardware store right here. This is all national pipe thread, 1-inch fittings, a couple bushings here, internally threaded. Of course, those screw in just like that, and these go on this end. What I'm doing here, instead of putting the air hoses in the 3-inch inlet, I'm going to be putting them in the outlets of this muffler. So we have those bushings, and I'm going to assemble this here quickly. And I like these couplings here, these rubber couplings. These things are really nice because you can either shrink these with the hose clamps that are included, or these can expand quite a bit too. Sometimes if you warm them up, it helps, and it helps them, fit. So this makes a good transition piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach these barb fittings to this muffler using this rubber coupler. I try to keep the material list as simple as possible, no exotic materials. Something you can pick up at the hardware store, maybe a couple of different websites you might have to go to get this stuff. But for the most part, this is all from the hardware store. That thing is ready to hook up to the air compressor with 1-inch air hose. I have 4 elbows here. Of course, 2 of these belong on this side in case you do a conversion here, depending on your configuration. 2 of these elbows are for converting the compressor head. in case you want to remove your air filter housings and put these in place. It's a direct replacement. Once you take the air filter housing adapter out, these screw right in place. That's what the factory does. Whenever you get the Silent Air package, they have a proprietary designed filtration system, and they, instead of running your filter housings right at the compressor head, they remove those and they put on these elbows, and of course a barb fitting like this here to directly connect the two systems. So I assumed that the elbows would give further sound reduction. So I got the same parts to do the same setup. What I found, however, was sort of surprising. I did a sound test using the stock filter setup, and I just attached a hose from the air filters down to the muffler, ran a sound test, listened to it of course too, and did a decibel reading. And then I removed the filter housing, put these elbows in place, and used the same hose, and did another sound test, and I was surprised to find out that there was no sound difference. Not that I could hear or that the meter could pick up. There again, the meter's not the best for, you should actually have a decibel meter, so maybe there is a sound reduction I'm just not hearing, but there was no appreciable sound decrease between the two tests. So for this setup, I'm just going to keep my air filters in place. There's no sense in having to build another air filter for the end of this if the stock air filters work just fine. Yeah, but the one thing you don't want to do is put these in place and then forget to use another air filter, because one sandblasting job and you just trashed your air compressor. Okay, at this point there's really not a whole lot I can do to make any further sound reduction. When this is running now, you cannot hear the sound pulses or the air pulses coming or going out of this intake. So there's really not much I can do there. Any other sound reduction you might want to get out of a compressor at this point is going to have to come from a modification of the immediate environment around the compressor itself. In other words, you're going to have to put the compressor into a separate building, or build a wall around it of some sort to actually block sound waves, the higher pitched mechanical sounds that are coming from the cast iron housing itself. And that's something that a muffler can't take care of. And that's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to be building a wall around the compressor, not a sealed wall. I don't want it to overheat, but I'm going to be building a wall around it that will contain a lot of the sound that this compressor is giving out. And then also I have to make sure there's enough airflow going through it that I don't get heat buildup into the compressor. So if you're going to do something like that, either has to be a big room or you have to force air into it to keep this thing cooled off. So that's what we're going to do next, and I think you'll like the results, especially you guys who have the rocking piston compressors, and you know how loud they are. They're just excruciatingly loud, and that will come in very handy for you guys. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit what I'm doing here. I put in a 24-inch door for access to the compressor. Of course, you need to do maintenance to it. And also here is the other side. Now I have 5/8 inch drywall in here now. You might be wondering what this foam is for. This is 1/4 inch foam. And I'm going to be putting on another layer of drywall, 1/2 inch drywall in this case, to add another layer of sound blocking. Now what the foam does is it isolates one board from the other, so the vibrations transferred through the first layer doesn't get to the second layer. Just with this modification here, I'm getting about another 2 to 3 decibel drop in sound level, which is quite substantial. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the outer layer will yield. And you notice here too on the door, I put 5/8 inch drywall on the inside of that. And of course, here's the inside of the enclosure. I'm going to be putting a light in here. And there's the cooling fan. I'm going to be taking measurements of the head too to make sure there's no overheating issues. So that's what I have so far. And so the construction continues. Okay, so this project is pretty much done at this point. I put another layer of drywall over the foam, and I'm not going to worry about putting molding on or anything because I'm not going to be painting this or finishing it. This is just for sound reduction, and I'm tired of working on it, so I'll show you here what I have done. See, the door is, that shows the actual cross section of the two layers with the foam in between. And of course I put it on the door too for further sound reduction. And the ceiling has, I don't have as much up there, there's only a 1/2 inch thick drywall up there, but you see there, of course, there's a light I installed for doing maintenance in here and doing adjustments and checking things. And let's see, I have a outlet here on the wall, kind of tough to see, but anyway, this outlet down here, the one receptacle is always on, and that is for my automatic floor drain. And this one up here is switched, so when I flip that on, I have a ventilation fan plugged in. You can hear it come on, and hopefully that will keep that head a little bit cooler than it was running even before I built this closet. And over there, of course, is my one regulator and valve, and I'm going to be modifying that as well, but I haven't gotten to that yet. And here's my muffler, as you've seen before. This is the finished setup, and it's mounted on a couple of 2x4s with foam rubber strips on top for sound deadening and to kind of stabilize the whole setup. And I have to run this muffler too, even with this closet built, because these closets are really good at blocking mid-range and high frequencies, but they're not so good with the low frequencies, and that's where you have to run something like this. Otherwise the low frequencies will move right through the wall. Okay, so let's check the sound on this thing while it's running. One thing I found about this test was with this setup, with that cooling fan, the heads are actually running about just under 50 degrees cooler than with the free air setup that I had before. So I'm happy to see that. I was kind of concerned about overheating with this closet. That's why I put the cooling fan in there, and it's working just fine. And it's pulling warmer air from the ceiling, so despite of that, it's still working really well.